Hello everybody, Root Beer here. Let's talk about math contest preparation. In particular in this video I'm going to talk about long-term preparation and very long-term preparation. So I'm going to start with very long-term preparation. What to do when you know a math contest is very, very far on the horizon. Okay, so examples of this might be you're in grade 9 or grade 8 and you know there is a Euclid eventually. You know the Euclid is the big paper, it's the scholarship paper, it's in grade 12, it's 3, 4, 5 years away, but you know it's the paper that certain universities, maybe the ones that you have your heart set on, look at to give you a little extra boost of, should we accept them into the math department, okay? Especially at Waterloo, because they're the people who make the contest. So you know that this is on the horizon, and you want to do well. Or, you're in first year university, you've heard about the Putnam competition, which you can write every year of your undergrad, and you know that the Putnam's awesome, and you want to represent your school, which you can do if you're one of the top writers of the Putnam in your school. Or you want to get any of the prizes associated for things like writing a perfect paper or whatever. Or, and this is one that is especially important for very long-term planning, you want to represent your country at a mathematical Olympiad, at the International Math Olympiad. So if you were Canadian, you'd be wanting to eventually represent Canada at the IMO, or American, you want to represent your country at the IMO. You should be aware of, and now I'm talking about what to actually do for the very long-term planning. Especially for the IMO stuff, you should be aware of the steps you need to take to even be in that position. So in Canada, last time I checked, you have to be writing a good Euclid, you have to sort of get noticed by people, writing a good open paper is pretty good to do, and these are sort of the lower level contests that sort of get you noticed by people, and then they have to invite you to various camps and get to know you and teach you more advanced math. And you have to be aware that you're going to be wanting to write things like the Canadian Math Olympiad. And I think we also get our prospective IMO representatives to write the American Math Olympiad. And so the USAMO, the USAMO. And I think we also do the Asian Pacific. It's been a while since I had to look into this stuff. If you are American, for example, to represent your country, you're also going to have to write the USAMO, the United States American Math Olympiad. That's a stepping stone to being on the team representing your country at the international. And so to write the USAMO, I think, and again, I'm not American, so I actually never went through this. I only wrote one American contest one year. I think you have to write a really good AMC, American Math Competition, then you get invited to write the American Invitational Math Exam, and then I think from there you get invited to the USAMO. Any Americans who've gone through the process, if I got something wrong, please correct me. The point being, if you are looking for a goal that is several years down the line, like representing your country, or winning a scholarship through the Euclid, or becoming a Putnam Fellow, and these things are several years down the road, the first thing is get a roadmap, get a plan. What do I need to be doing? What scores should I probably be getting, in this year and then the next year, and how should I be improving? And a great way to keep yourself on track with those things is to have other people who have a similar goal. I read a book, was it last winter, by someone who sort of went through the sort of stuff you need to end up writing and representing your country at the IMO, which is why I keep bringing this up. It's a book called The Math Olympian by a fellow I know named Richard Hoshino. And in the book, it details one girl's journey to try and represent Canada, because Richard's Canadian, so he wrote from a Canadian perspective. And she had people she knew, she had a buddy, and they both promised each other they'd get there. Great book, maybe I'll review it or something on the webpage and direct you guys, or not the webpage, on my YouTube account, and direct you guys to a copy of the book. But it really is important to get comfortable with the sort of people who you might be working with towards this common goal. And you guys can keep each other on track. Other things to do is to look into getting a coach can help you for those sorts of things. And coaches can come in all sorts of forms. We sort of have informal coaches at my local math enrichment program, and these are people who are there every year. And so you can say, I really want to do well at the Euclid. And they'll say, okay, I've seen people like you before. You need to do this, this, and this. Here I've got some sample problems. See what you can make of them. Let's find where your level's at, and let's see what you need to improve on. That sort of stuff. So long-term goals are important to know and important to also sort of lay out as a roadmap. I need to do this, 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 and this. So now let's talk, you've got a specific contest coming up within the year. So this is now long-term planning, not super long-term planning. Okay, so this is, okay, the Fermat's coming up. I wrote it last year, I want to do well. Or I wrote the Cayley last year, I want to do well on the Fermat this year. The most important thing, and hear this is a very important, probably the most important thing I'll say in the whole series. And I've talked to so many other people to get perspective on some of these things. Everyone says the same thing. The most important thing, practice, practice, practice. This is true of all math, not just math contests, not just the IMO, not just the Euclid, not just the grade 7 Gauss, not the Kangaroo contest, not just even writing your exams at school, your tests, your quizzes. Practice, practice, practice. Get your hands on as many copies of whatever paper you're going to write and go through them. Get your hands on as many questions that are in the same style as your midterm or whatever. Get your hands on them and try them. And try them honestly. Don't try them with the solution manual opened up. Don't try them after having watched my video where I went through the Pascal. Try them and try them under exam conditions. That means, if they don't let you use calculators, try it without a calculator. Okay, if it's an hour and a half long contest, put an egg timer out or get a friend to say, oh, your hour and a half's up. Try it under exam-like conditions so that you are actually prepared for the day of, and it's very natural for you to be in that situation because you've practiced, practiced, practiced. Okay? Now, going along with the practice, there are certain smaller aspects that you need to practice. Practice writing up solutions. And if it's a solution-based contest, or practice smart multiple choice test taking, that sort of stuff. And one of the best ways to practice, other than just doing old contests, is when you do them, when you finish them, often there is an exam guide. So the CEMC, I mentioned this occasionally in my videos, they post solutions to their Gausses, their Hypatias, that sort of stuff. When you've done your solution, take a look at theirs. Watch my videos. Shameless plug, but frankly you're already on my channel, so don't worry about it. Watch my solutions, because yeah, you might have gotten the answer of 12, or you might have done the proof that showed that the triangle was in fact contained in the square, or whatever it is. But if you look at someone else's solutions, you can gain a new perspective, a new style, a new technique, or say, I took the long way around, this is a shorter way. Or you can say, wow, they were really using a lot of lines. Should I be using that many words to talk about my proof? Okay? So you get a sense of the way questions should be done and formatted. And this goes hand in hand with the practicing. This is sort of a subset of practicing the contest really well. A great way to practice, again, practice with a buddy, practice with a small group. You can race each other at this stage. Don't race each other, towards the coming days before the exam, because then you can sort of turn it into a competition amongst each other and sort of a rivalry. I wouldn't do that. Try and keep the spirit of, it's a math contest. It's supposed to be fun. The only competitor you really should be worried about is trying to beat yourself from all the practice papers, or trying to beat yourself when you wrote the Euclid last year. Don't worry about your buddy. If he's the school champion, don't let that intimidate you. And if you happen to be, head and shoulders above everybody else, don't go rubbing it in saying, hey, let's race, because I'm going to kick your butt. Okay? But being able to just have that friendly, hey, let's race, let's see who can do this contest the fastest, or the neatest, or answer this question with the fewest lines, that can sometimes help you along as you're trying to do these things. And then you've got someone else whose solutions you can compare. And you say, oh, you did it that way. Well, I did it with using this theorem or whatever. And you can gain new perspectives that way as well. Okay? And when you run out of old papers, so if I were doing the Euclid and I'm practicing the Euclid, I would try and get my hands on as many Euclids as I can. eventually I would probably exhaust all the Euclids, especially if I had a whole year of planning. Similar papers exist. The written style questions on the Canadian Senior Mathematics Competition. That's a great stand-in. The old Descartes papers. Those are basically Euclids. Try those. You can find those online. Hypatias. Some of the harder Hypatia questions are basically mid-range Euclid questions. So when you run out of actual old Euclids, there's plenty of substitute Euclids out there. Okay, and say you're practicing for the Pascal, you run out of Pascals. Try to do the hard questions on the grade 8 Gauss really quickly, or try and see how much of a Cayley you can get done, because there's not a great deal of difference. There's a difference in some of the material, but not a great deal of difference in terms of the format and the style of questions. So get your hands on the old papers, but if you run out, get substitutes. If you got a coach you're working with or another enrichment group that's been going around for a while, odds are someone who's running it will probably have another bank of some contest from around the world. The Sri Lanka high school math exam is almost the exact same format. I'll get you some of those. You can try those. But practice, practice, practice. Get so many questions until you're sick of the questions. Okay, you should an avalanche of questions. You should always have something that you can be working on, because practice makes perfect. And as one of my favorite sort of math instructors or math mentors said, and still to this day says, math is not a spectator sport. We don't learn by watching math. We learn by doing math. This is true for contests. I also tell my students this when it comes time for exam prep. Students watch me in class do examples. And then when it comes time for the exam, they're knocking on my door for office hours saying, how did you know how to do that? And I said, because when I was young, I watched someone else do the question like that. Now you've seen it. It's not, oh, you were supposed to follow along and say, instantly, yeah, of course he was supposed to do that. No, sometimes you watch someone and you can learn that way. But it's more important to actually go out and do the questions yourself. You're not supposed to just watch and know. You can watch to learn, but you learn so much more by just doing. Okay? Another reason you want to do practice problems is you learn by doing. You learn techniques and learn how quickly you can do things, but you can also learn that, hey, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do circle geometry. I'm rubbish when it comes to rearranging equations. And that's the sort of stuff you want to know in long term, because that's the sort of stuff that you can now work on. You can go buy a book full of just circle geometry questions and practice those. You can tailor your practicing. You can say, no, I'm fine on trigonometry questions, but I really need to practice logarithm questions. Okay? So you can identify what you need to especially practice on by doing old papers and doing tons of questions and noticing the pattern for yourself. And now that I've mentioned pattern, by doing past Euclids, you can notice if certain themes come up. Okay, and I'll do another video talking about that sort of thing, but that's what can come out of just straight practicing. Okay. When you find that you're lacking in a certain area, like say circle geometry, also in the long term is the time to go and read literature about this. This doesn't so much happen on, say, high school level math competitions, where if you've been attending trig class, you probably know how to do some trig. Okay, but for higher up contests, like say the Putnam's a good example, or even if you are, if you're a grad student watching this and you're preparing for your university's comprehensive exams, these are intense theory-based competitions in some regard. Or in the case of the comprehensive exam, it's a theory-based exam, but you can still treat it like a competition. And sometimes there are questions that use topics that you've never learned before. I've seen, for example, like group theory on a Putnam competition. And if you don't know group theory, and if your university isn't offering a group theory course in the time that you need, this is the time to go and grab a group theory book and read up on the subject for yourself, okay? Or an advanced calculus book, that sort of thing. In terms of other things to do long term, practice problems. I've sort of been hinting at it when I said get a group of people, but try and get into and get to know the community behind the competitions. So where I am, we've got an enrichment program that really does that. And so get involved in that. See what resources there are available for you. If there aren't any around, make them up. Okay, put flyers up and say, I'm doing study prep, in the computer lab after school for the upcoming Galwap contest. Anyone who wants to join me, you're welcome to. That sort of thing. So if there's a community, make one. You can also find these sorts of communities online, and you can find people out there who are willing to share with you their tips and their tricks. I mean, you're already watching something online where someone's sharing tips and tricks, so you're already off to a great start. But again, most important thing for long-term preparation is practice, 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 practice. Okay, so I'm going to talk about things like short-term, what you should be doing, and other stuff in other videos, but we got the long-term sort of out of the way. So that contest in a year from now, you should be planning out a roadmap and getting a whole bunch of other contests to practice for that. Okay, so I'll see you guys in another video. Thank you for watching.